Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, I couldn't hear you before.
Okay, cool. All right. Hey, Kierre Stowes, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Thanks for having me on the show for sure.
Awesome. So I want to go back. I want to go all the way back. Take me back to the moment that sparked your desire to be a film critic.
Yeah, great question. So for me, it kind of started with my best friend Jason Alley. We've been friends since basically high school, and so even in high school, we would, we were both in drama together. That's kind of how we met in drama. So I was interested in acting at the time, but I always loved film, even growing up. As a kid, I parents were military, so I kind of traveled all over the world. A lot of times I lived overseas, and so we didn't have cable and things of this nature. So a lot of my entertainment was just watching film, and that continued when I moved back to the States at around 16. And so from there, as an adult, I would go to the movies all the time. It's just kind of my passion just to go to and watch film. And eventually, I just kind of started, freelance writing and things of this nature. We used Letterbox and we would do reviews, and we used to have these movie get-togethers all the time where we would invite like a group of friends. Sometimes it'd be like 30 of us. We do like a dinner to the movie thing. And a lot of
Oh man,
times
that's fun.
after we went to yeah, so it'd be like 30, 40 of us sometimes. I think at one point we had like 50 something people that came out, and then we would all go to like dinner afterwards and have these discussions about the film. And myself and my friend Jason, we were constantly having these conversations back and forth with each other about the movie, whether we liked it, and different aspects of it. And so people were always like, you guys should do a show because, they liked our banter. We were best friends, but we disagreed quite a bit. And so we first started a YouTube channel. Just kind of doing our movie reviews and things of this nature. And then I started writing, and at some point in time, organizations started to reach out to me, saying, "Hey, we kind of like what you guys are doing. Have you ever thought about writing for this organization and that organization?" And so I started just signing up for these various organizations, and flash forward to now, I write for the African American Film Critics Association, which is the largest in the world for African American basically film critics. And then I also write for the Hollywood Creative Alliance, which is an offshoot shoot of the Critics' Choice. So the owners they basically split and they started their own company, and so I write for both of those two organizations and a couple of smaller ones as well. That's pretty much how I got into to writing for film and being a film critic, essentially.
That's amazing. Tell me a little bit more about Jason. How did you meet Jason?
Yeah, so we met in drama. I had
Okay.
known. So I moved to California. I was living in Japan for 4 years, and when I was 16, my parents got stationed up at Beale, which is about 45 minutes north of Sacramento. And so I was living up in Yuba City at that particular time, and I was actually going to Wheatland High School, which is closest high school to the Air Force Base. And Jason was going there as well, as his father used to be in the military also. And so I had seen him around, periodically at school. I didn't really know him. He played the guitar, and so he was always playing guitar, so I knew him from that. And then we both were in drama together. And, we would participate in plays and do things like that. And then we just kind of formed a friendship. We both found out that we have a big common interest, which was film. And we both shared a love for a lot of the same movies. At the time, oh, still currently, my favorite film was Pulp Fiction, and it was also one of his
Okay.
favorite films as well. It wasn't his top film, but it's like in his top 10 for sure. And so we kind of had a bond over that, and then we found out we have a lot of other films similar that we like to watch, and so it was really cool because a lot of times I was watching kind of more of the Hollywood films, whereas he was watching a lot of the indie films. And so we, I started watching a lot more indie films and seeing some other films that were a little bit more out there and kind of more guerrilla style and things of that nature. So it was, and we just kind of formed a friendship over that. And we lived in Yuba City, and a lot of times we didn't get the bigger or the smaller films that came, those indie films. And so we would drive to Sacramento, we would drive to San Francisco sometimes and watch some of the indie undiscovered films and things of that nature.
Oh, that is so cool. I want to get back to Pulp Fiction. We'll get back to that later.
For
But
sure.
you mentioned AFCA. So tell me about AFCA and how you got involved with them.
Yeah, so I initially I was with another. I still am a member of another film critics circle, basically,
Okay.
and it was the owner or the president of that organization was also a member of that organization, and so he told me about them, and he got me in touch with a gentleman named Gil Robinson, who is the president of that organization, very well known in the Hollywood community. He does interviews and stuff with a lot of prominent black actors, primarily like your Will Smiths and Don
Okay.
Cheadles and things of this nature. And so when I heard about that, I sent them some of my stuff that I was doing. I was doing writing both on Letterboxd. I was also doing these video things that I do currently on my socials, and I sent them that, and they basically said, you sound like a perfect candidate for us. You're very active. You seem like you watch a lot of movies. And I said, yeah, and so they told me kind of the requirements. You have to watch about 75% of the films that they deem to be Hollywood or award worthy, I guess, if you will. And it's the same
Okay.
with the CFAA as well. You have to watch about 75% of the films that they for their own award season, basically. And so,
Got it.
and most of the times I had already seen probably 80% of those films myself, just not even trying. And so, I usually try to watch as many as I could. Even if I didn't get to all 100, I would try to at least make sure that I watched the 75 to 80% in order to keep my standing. So
So is that how it works? Like when you join these organizations, they give you the access to the early screenings. Is that part of it, or is that something else?
that's a little it's a little tricky. So yes and no. So when you join these organizations, your name goes onto a list as a critic. And so what happens is
Okay.
a lot of times marketing companies, which are separate entities from that, will reach out to you. And so I work with a couple different marketing companies that reach out to me, and they usually actually generate that, not necessarily based on you being a film critic per se. They're looking at reach, and so what they look at is metrics in terms of where you're at as far as your social media standing. So what your YouTube looks like, and then even more importantly, your Instagram and Facebook followers. And so at the time that they reached out to me, I had maybe 10, now I think I have like 24,000 followers on Instagram, but at that time I maybe had like 10,000 or 15,000. And they said, well, you meet the metrics, and they also look at how many they also look at your how many likes and comments and things like that you're getting on your videos as well. So you can't just say, well, I have 20,000 followers, because if you don't have because people can pay for followers, right? And so if you don't have
Right.
the likes and the comments and things of this nature, and you're not really engaged in your community, chances are you're not going to get with these organizations. So they vetted me for a couple weeks before they actually started saying, okay, yeah, now we're going to start sending you these screeners, and we're going to start well, not so much the screeners, actually. I'll go back to that in a second. That we're going to start, giving you these advanced screenings, basically. And so a lot of the times I would get these advanced screenings, and I still do that now. And then as I grew, they would start saying, oh, well, how about you start running contests for, and so I started doing that as well. So I do contests for, sometimes they'll say, hey, we're going to give you, 10 passes to go see the new Odyssey film or something of that nature, and I would run
Yeah.
contests so people could go see it for free. And they liked that I would tag in the production companies and things of this. So you tag in Warner Brothers or whatever the case may be in the film, and and they said that they were getting a lot of hits from that, and so and they continued to send me stuff and started sending me like unboxing stuff, so I could do my unboxing videos, so a lot of like movie swag and stuff like that. So
Oh,
so a
fun.
lot of really good perks from that for sure. So.
That's so cool. Early on, did you have any mentors that stood out that kind of guided you through this process to where you're at today?
Growing up, I was a really big fan of the Siskel and Ebert, and that's kind of where Jason and I kind of modeled our kind of references off of. So we were big fans
Yes,
of
their
them
TV
growing up.
show was great.
Yeah, it was really great. And then even when Gene Siskel basically passed away, and then they brought in Roper, I was still a big fan of that as well. Also watched Leonard Maltin. He was also another one that was an influence for me as well. My style is a little bit different because we're more in the digital age, and so I do a little bit more of the video things, whereas theirs was more of like a podcast interview, kind of like what we're doing right now, but they were in the same room and
Okay.
watching a film and then kind of giving their reviews. Whereas I do kind of like little shorts. I do like little like 1.5, 2 minute videos. Sometimes I'll go up to like 5 minutes if it's
Yes.
something I really have a lot to talk about. Because in my experience, especially in today's age, people don't read as much as they used to. They'd rather get that information like really quick. And so what I found over the years, I used to do like these really, really long sprawling reviews that took like forever, to proof them and to write them and get my thoughts together. And so, I spend like, hours trying to do this one review, and it got really
Yeah.
complicated for me for a while because, sometimes I would see, three movies in a day. And I still do that sometimes. Like there's some days where, I'll get up in the morning, I'll go to the theater and watch a movie. I'll come home, I might watch a movie in the afternoon, and then I might watch another movie, before I go to bed at night. And they were all movies that I haven't seen before or they were relatively new. So I'm writing three reviews, and, I don't have
Wow.
all day to write them. And so I started doing like the video reviews because it was very quick. I could tell you exactly in my own words what I was thinking, without sounding too pretentious or whatever case may be, which sometimes some writers get to do, right? And then I could also follow that up with a written review of my score. And I decided instead of writing these long, sprawling reviews, I was like, people only care about whether you like it or not at the most part. So,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
give them maybe a paragraph of, basically describing what the film is about, and then just go into directly your opinion of whether you essentially liked it or not. And then I just usually just link my reviews back to the video review that I did. Say, hey, if you want a little bit of a more in-depth discussion, you can follow this link. And then in my own words, just me talking about exactly what I had written. So
I love that. That's where I found you, was on Instagram. Your short
yeah,
bite-sized reviews on Instagram were so cool.
yeah,
The
yeah. And so
in-depth,
I do
yeah.
those, and so pretty much almost on a, I would say not every day, but I would say probably about 5 days a week, I'll do some sort of review. And then I also do, one of the things that I love doing is basically doing little best ofs and things of this nature, like best horror films, best whatever's. I think right now I'm doing my top 75, one crazy day, one crazy night films. I'm still in the middle of that.
Oh,
I think I
very cool.
started it, I don't know, like February or something, and I'm just now in the top 10 now. But because I'm subbing in other movie reviews and stuff in between that, and I have to always come back to it. So I like to try to keep it fun and keep it fast and loose with that as well. So
That's great. That kind of transitioned perfectly into. I wanted to ask you about your philosophy and approach, and you spoke a little bit to that. But go a little deeper into what's your approach to film criticism.
yeah, so for me, I try not to come off as too pretentious. So that I make that
Can you
conscious
define
effort.
that? Can you define the what you view as pretentious in film criticism?
So a lot of critics, right? You'll read a movie review and it's got all this like certain flair to it, right? There's like a certain flair to a way a film critic writes, where it sounds like really like more like journalism, if you will, where
Mm,
you're like having to decipher exactly what they mean. A lot of times, like it's very coded, and you're like, sometimes I've read full reviews, and I didn't know till I got down to the actual score whether they actually liked it or not. And
yeah,
that's what I mean about being pretentious. You're not really, you're giving me like all these beautiful words, but you're not really telling me the meat of like, did you enjoy this film or not? And so for me, I kind of flipped it and I said, people don't, some people, unless you're a true cinephile, if you're just an average moviegoer, right? All you really care about at the end of the day is whether I enjoyed this film or not, right? So
yeah,
you're never gonna love every film that I love, right? It's just the nature of the beast. So you're never gonna love everything that I love. But if you follow me and you like, say, 75, 80% of the films that I like or my style, and you think that, you vetted me and you think that I have a good opinion of film, I try to keep it, I want to say simple, but I try to keep it more in layman's term purposely. I try not to, get too expressive and things of that nature in my writing because I do feel like sometimes that comes across as pretentious in some circles, and I also feel like it does turn some people off because people see these long, reviews with these great fancy words that they're using, and they sound very articulate and things of this nature. But if I'm an average moviegoer, what the hell do I care about all these adjectives that you're using to describe a word when I'm just like, can you just tell me, do you like the film or not? And so that's one of the things that I personally have tried not to do. And I don't knock that style, but that's just me. I don't,
yeah,
I don't personally, and I could do that if I wanted to, and I've done that in many circumstances with reviews in the past where I tried to be, okay, I'm gonna be like just like everybody else and use these, great adjectives and go to the thesaurus and look up, what's a better word for this? You know what I mean? Oh, I like
yeah,
that word. Let me sub that in, and that's usually what a lot of them do. Or they have a
yeah,
proofreader that'll go and flare it up a little bit for them before they actually go to post. If they're writing for like a magazine or an article or something like that, an editor will come in or a proofreader will come in and they'll add an extra little
Clean
pizzazz
it
and
up.
flair to it, you know. And
Ah, yeah,
so
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a big fan of that personally. That's not
Yeah.
something that I like to do. And I sometimes I don't like reading those reviews because even myself, I'm like, I know what you're saying, but you're not really telling me whether you. It's all superficial to me. You're not really getting to the
Yes.
meat of whether you actually enjoy this film. And I have to scroll through 6 paragraphs, 8 paragraphs of all this flair to get to the bottom where you finally give your grade. So,
That makes a lot of
you know,
sense to me because, like, I think a big part of YouTube, especially and social media, is you almost like gain a relationship with a parasocial relationship with the person you're following, and so
right.
like once you go to some movies and you see how they talk about it, you can kind of gauge, how they're approaching the film. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really
and
cool.
like I said, I don't knock that style. There's a lot of cinephiles that prefer that style of writing and that style of dictation, if you will.
Yeah,
But that's just not me. I try to just keep it real. Like, hey, this is me. This is me telling you like how I like the film. There's no extra fluff or flair to what I'm saying or what I'm writing. I
I
want you to
love
have
that.
give you a little bit about, hey, this is what the film is about without giving away spoilers. And this is what my take on the film is. This is what I thought about it. I enjoyed these aspects of the film. I thought this was great. I thought that the action scenes or the dialogue was really good. I can see this film winning awards, things of this nature, and then whether or not I liked it and kind of give it a grade. And that's kind of where I'm at as a film critic. I try to do things a little differently than what other film critics are doing. And so I've made that conscious decision of saying, I don't want to sound like every other film critic. I don't want to sound like Leonard Maltin or, any of these other guys that
Yeah.
are out there, or Ropers or, Ebert when he was still around. I don't want to sound like those guys because I want to do my own thing and create my own lane, basically.
I love that. I love that. Now, if you were helping out somebody else, if there were say there's some kids out there that want to get into film criticism as well, what advice would you give them to start? And especially in this day and age where everything's on social media and YouTube, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them just to start. Don't think too much on it. Just start doing it, right? And then I would also tell people to start reaching out to people that are in the film community. That's one of the first things that I did before I started doing all the things that I do on the side with my television show and the film festival and all that good stuff. I started just reaching out to other film critics that I saw in the community or other film critics that I knew. And the best way to grow your audience is to start following people that have like about as many followers as you have, right? So if you have
Okay.
300 followers on Instagram, right, it makes no sense for you to link and connect with a Leonard Maltin or somebody that has millions of
Yeah.
followers because, those followers, they're never going to know who the heck you are. But if you have 300 followers and you see another film critic that has another 300 followers, hey, let's link, let's collaborate together, let's share each other's posts, let's share each other's stories. You share my post, I'll share your post, add it to your story, I'll add it to my story, because we have about the same amount of followers, but maybe you have 300 different followers that I don't have. And a lot of times, I might even start following some of their followers, so I'll connect with some
Yes.
of their followers, and then it kind of creates like this vacuum of where we're both kind of growing at the same time as film critics. And that happened to me in the beginning, and fortunately for me, or unfortunately for whatever reason, is when I started, there were a lot of film critics that were on that same level as me in terms of followers, but my platform continued to grow. And so as I continued to grow, I started looking for bigger critics to follow as well and kind of do that same thing and to the point where I'm at now. So I would say just start. Um,
Is there a
but if you're
specific
going to
platform
connect
you'd
with
have
other
them
people,
start?
what's that?
Is there a specific platform you would recommend?
I think Instagram is kind of the biggest one right now that I would recommend. YouTube is obviously very big and you can grow, but in my opinion, well, they're all a little saturated. But in my opinion, YouTube is so saturated, and it's really become, from what I've seen, kind of like a pay to play kind of thing where you gotta like
Mm,
get a marketer or something of this nature that can market your videos in order to really reach a broad audience. and it's harder to grow organically on YouTube because there's not a community like that, right? So it's like
Yeah.
YouTube, either you follow me or you subscribe to me or you don't, right? You can subscribe to another channel, but people have to subscribe to you, and a lot of times they don't even know who else is following you or who you're following and that sort of stuff. Instagram's different. You can see exactly. It's very quick, easy to see how many followers you have. It's very quick and easy to see who you're following. And actually, you can click on, most people's links, and it'll tell you exactly who they're following. So I suggest Instagram because it's a very easy and quick way to build your audience and build your platform by looking at similar film critics and then start following the people that they follow or follow the people that are following them. And a lot of times, if you have 300 followers, right, and I connect with you, and then I'm doing the same thing as you're doing with movie reviews, and you're doing movie reviews. If I start following the people that follow you, chances are they're going to follow me back. They're like, oh, here's another
Yeah.
film critic that's doing the same thing as him, and he's got as many followers as he does. And so you do that, and then you can quickly start growing your platform.
That's fantastic. Okay, I want to move on here. Jason and you started Sacktown Movie Buffs, and did you guys do it? I saw something about. Did you change it to Sacktown Media Buffs? I'm not sure. You go ahead and tell me about that
Yeah.
journey, how you
So
got that started
yes
with
and no.
Jason. Okay.
So we were thinking of a name for when we were doing our movie reviews and our podcast together. And so the name of the podcast we came up with Sacktown Movie Buffs. And so it was just a podcast. It was just the two of us. And so we were doing reviews and what happened was we were doing mostly Hollywood reviews. And so what happened is a lot of independent filmmakers started reaching out to us directly. And we're like, hey, it'd be really great if you could review my movie and talk about it and discuss it. And it was something that we hadn't really thought about because we weren't really engaged in independent film at that time, at that level anyways. Was like, really, really independent, not like Hollywood independent, like really
Yeah.
independent, because
Yeah.
technically
Exactly.
technically Quentin Tarantino's an independent filmmaker in some circle,
Right.
right? But he's making millions and millions of dollars. So we would watch some of these smaller films, and then we'd have the people on the show and kind of talk to them and things of this nature. Would then in turn kind of into my television show that I have. We initially were calling it Sacktown Movie Buffs TV. And
Okay.
we were primarily interviewing movie people like actors, producers, and things of this nature. But as we started branching out, we started interviewing other people that weren't just in film. So we would start interviewing musicians and people doing things in the
Very
local
cool.
community. And so because of that, just the television show portion of it, we changed it to Sacktown Media Buffs because we're doing more than just film. And we didn't want to have that distinction where people are like, oh, well, they're only going to interview film people. And so we changed it to the media just so we can bring in more people and get a larger audience. Like we just interviewed the vice mayor of Sacramento. But because we changed that media buffs, it changed the narrative of what we were going after.
Yeah, and it speaks to the involvement that you and Jason have had in the community too, where like the community sees what you're doing and it's getting excited about it and it's building. So I really appreciate that you've done that and built that for a place where people like us, the filmmakers, can talk and chat and connect with the
Yeah,
community.
and yeah, with the show, it was always my goal to just kind of highlight mostly local filmmakers that were doing, acting and producing and directing, and just to, give them a voice and let them talk in their own words about whatever film they were working on or involved in or what their background was in. And then we share those videos on our YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all of our socials as well. And it kind of helps with their marketing also. And we've seen but it has worked for some people. We've seen some people that kind of started off, just trying to get involved in film, and we did the show, and then now they're just a lot of them are seem to be flourishing in their environment and getting a lot more opportunities, and so it's a good thing. If we can help in some kind of way to get more exposure, or get you more access, I'm all for that. So.
That's exciting. So, what are your plans for Sacktown Movie Buffs TV in the future? Do you have any big plans?
We're still branching out. We want to continue to monetize it, and we've gotten some grants and things of this nature. And so we're looking to continue to get grants and expand. And we do want to start, even though we're in Sacramento, we want to start branching out to the Bay Area and start eventually getting down to LA, and would love to start, corresponding with more Hollywood types and things of this nature. And so that's eventually kind of our goal, but we're just kind of taking baby steps to get there because there's a few things that we want to clean up internally before we start making those aggressive moves. And so we figure, well, hey,
Gotcha.
before you jump all the way down to LA and, try to get a
Yeah.
Robert De Niro to be on your show, you might want to start, polishing your show a little bit, cleaning up a few things and some issues, and investing just to make the production look a little bit better as well and more professional. And so those are some of the things that we are working on. But it takes money for those things. And so you need grants
Right.
and you
Yeah.
need sponsors and you need people to say, hey, we like what you're doing, and get that vision and get behind you. And we've gotten some of those, but it's been like kind of like more of a nickel and dime versus a flood. And so
Mm,
we're always constantly looking because it takes a lot to produce these
it
shows that
does.
we do. You need a program director, you got to have an audio person, you got to have an editor, you got to have someone that does lighting, you got to have videographers, you got to have, a floor
Yeah.
director. It's a whole production on that, and you're doing it on a very limited budget. And so to
Yes.
really do things the way you want to do, you need those sponsors, you need those grants, you need people in the community that want to invest in what you're doing and they believe in it. So, and that's what we've been
Yes.
building.
That's awesome. All right, I want to jump to the Sacktown Film Festival. It's 5 years running now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so yeah, we are going
Yeah.
on our fifth year. And actually, the film festival became before the TV show.
Did it really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So what happened is when Jason and I were doing our podcast and we were interviewing those small films and things of this nature, we eventually got a gig where we were working with another a film festival that was an online film festival. They're based like down in Louisiana, but they were an online film festival. And what they would do is they would have the films on their platform, and you could just go and you could pay like a subscription, and then you could watch on their platform.
Got
And
it.
what he asked us to start doing was interviewing these individuals that were on their platform, watching their films, and then interviewing, and that's what we were doing. And then that relationship kind of went south a little bit. I don't know if he ran out of money. I don't know what the situation was, but he stopped paying us at some point.
Mm,
And so we decided we mutually agreed to just kind of sever ties. But before we severed, he said, I just want to say one thing. He goes, I like what you guys are doing in the community. Even though this didn't work out long term, you guys could potentially start your own festival there in Sacramento and do some of the same things. And I think you guys would be successful at it. And I think you'd be successful at it because you're a film critic. There's not a whole lot of film festivals that have a true film critic that are there, right? And I said, yeah,
mm,
I said that sounds like a good idea. And I said that's also a good way to bring in individuals into the in the community that are filmmakers, because one of the issues we were having is we would have them on the show, and then people after the show would write us or email us and say, hey, that film that you guys were talking about, it sounded really good, where can I get it? And a lot of times they were like the director of the film was still like in the process of like getting it out or getting distribution, or didn't really have a easy place or path for people to go watch those, or sometimes they were like on Vimeo or some other media platform, and a lot of times
yeah.
we didn't know where it was at, and we had to reach back out to the director because they sent it directly to us, right? And so we had to reach back out to the director like, hey, what's this? We got people asking. And I said, well, why don't we just do a film festival, and then there's a one place where people can come and they can all converge, and then they can watch all these films that we're talking about. And so that's kind of how the film festival got started.
Well, I mean, not only Converge, but you hosted at Esquire IMAX, which is the best screen in town.
Yeah,
So,
I
man,
don't do anything small. Anything I do, I want it to try to be the best, the biggest that I possibly can do, and that's just kind of
love
how
that.
I've always been. I'm a doer, but I always think very hard about how I invest and how I'm going to do things. And my background in professional world is in marketing and sales. And so I use some of those same principles to market and to figure out how to market myself and to market our event. And we just do that through, the social media posts, continue to build our following, continue to grow our audience, and then also with the television show. So then that's how kind of the television show came, because before the festival run up, we were having some of the directors, and I was interviewing some of them like in this format, And I said, hey, well, let's just, partner with Access Sacramento, and then we can start our
Yeah.
own show and have people on the show, and then we can talk about the films that we're going to show at the festival to kind of hype the festival, which kind of turned into a whole nother thing where now everybody wanted to be on the show, whether they had a film in the festival or not, and which is great. I love it. And so we started interviewing additional people, and that's how we ended up growing and eventually changing to the media buff because people were contacting us wanting to be on the show, and we have a guest wait list right now. I'd have to ask my producer, but I think we have like 150 people on our guest list
Wow.
that are interested in being on the show. So it's fun, but it is a challenge because we can only do so many shows. So
You got to be able to sleep sometime, right?
yeah. In between my movie review watching, and then I also have to watch
Yeah.
all the films for the film festival as well, which is
Yeah.
like
Speaking
another
of that,
job as well.
I just saw your newsletter, your email newsletter, and you're having over hundreds and hundreds of submissions. How do you
Yeah,
deal with that? And yeah,
it's getting really tough. So the first year we did the festival, it was primarily just myself, Jason, and my wife. More so myself and my wife watching most of the films. Jason helped out a little bit towards the end, but he likes to watch them on the screen. So he's a bigger fan of not doing it that way. He's a bigger fan of
uh,
actually wanting to go to the IMAX and watching it there. So
yeah.
the first year, my wife and I watched pretty much all of the films. It wasn't as many. It
Wow.
was I don't know, maybe 150, 160 or something like that. And then the next year it was like 300, and then like I'm like, oh, okay, we kind of doubled, and and I still was making that effort. And then the next year I said, you know what, let's just hire some additional people that are interested in watching films to help us out, to help weed out some of these films, because it's getting more difficult to watch all of them. And this will be the first year that I can honestly say that I may not watch every single film. We just have
Wow.
way too many films coming in. We're realistically looking at about 600 to 700 films coming in. That's a full time job. I don't
No
have time to
kidding.
watch 600 or 700 films, and also fulfill my movie review obligations with the with the companies that I work for.
Yeah.
So I don't have the time, and I have a day job still, and so I had to hire more. More basically judges for this year, and so what they're doing is they're
Wow.
splitting it up and they're taking chunks and things of this nature. So for me, I want to make sure that I'm watching any film that's like in NorCal. I want to make sure I'm watching those.
Yeah.
Um,
Prioritize those.
and so that's what I try to do. And then I try to watch any film maybe in Southern California or any states that are really, really close where people still potentially might come. But I may not watch all the international films if they're not getting good scores from the rest of my critics. If it's getting
Yeah.
a good score from the rest of the judges, then I'll watch that as well to see if that's a contender to play at our festival. But one of the rules that we make for our festival is that somebody from your film must attend the festival. I'm not a big fan of playing films where no one's going to show up, and it's hard to get. And a lot of them are short, so it's hard to get somebody that submitted a 10-minute short from Uganda that's going to fly all the way
Yeah.
to Sacramento to come watch the film. So it's kind of, in my opinion, kind of a waste of my time to watch that film if the director has no intention of coming, and it's not good. So I'd rather have a
Yeah.
crew
Yeah.
that they can watch some of these films, and then we can filter out the ones that we know we're not going to watch because I don't have the time to watch every single one of them now. So.
Do you have like a volunteer sign up for anything like that? Can people volunteer
Yeah, yeah.
to
I
be
reach out
judges?
every year and say, hey, if anybody's interested. So usually how it works is our festival's in April, and usually, May we're already taking submissions for films. I don't really start selecting films usually until about September. And even
Okay.
then, it's like more of a trickle. I might select one film in September, two films in October. But by the time we get to like December, January, I'm really starting to select a lot more films. And so usually around about now, maybe beginning of September, I'll usually send out an email. I'll probably even do it September 1st, where I'm just saying, hey, we're looking for another round of judges that are interested in assisting, and then what you get free entry into the festival. You get whatever swag that we're giving away that year. You get that stuff as well, and it really gets you involved in the community, and you can meet new people and things of this nature. And so a lot of people do sign up, and that really helps us out to do it that way. And then at some point, I don't know if we're going to do it this year or not. It just depends on how many tickets we're able to sell. We want to be able to pay those individuals as well for helping and assisting. I hadn't done it in previous years, but it's something we're going to try to do this year, because we pay all of our staff and our crew that are at the event, and so I'm like, well, we should probably be paying the people that are helping us judge these films as well, and so we're going to try to offer them something monetarily as well. That way, it kind of incentivizes people to watch more films. So.
Very cool. So is the submission deadline already past us for April, or can people?
No. So we have multiple deadlines. So we had the first like early bird deadline was like in July the 12th, and then I think we have like another like regular deadline on like October the 12th, and then there's like 3 more deadlines that we have after that. So I think there's another one in like December, and then January, and then I think we cut it off in February, which is our late and final deadline. But after each deadline, the price increases, and so I just always try to push people to submit early because I don't like to gouge people. If you submit like in April or May, I should say, in May or June, some people are paying as low as like $2.50 for submission because you're like, you can have like a student and something like that. So actually, I think one of them got it for like $1.25 because they were a student, they were like a gold member and stuff like that. So they got it for like $1.25. They were able to submit their film. If you wait till like amazing. February to submit it, it realistically could be like, $50-$60, which is, not nothing, you know what I mean, for one submission, considering you could have submitted it in June for $1.25. So that's why I pushed to like, hey, we're trying to save a little bit of money. You want to submit it now if you have a film that's completed. And we understand there's always people that are filming stuff, and my film's not going to be done until October. Well, okay, in that case, you have no choice but to submit it whenever the film is completed. So we do try to push early to get the submissions in. And it makes my job easier because right now I'm watching the films kind of by myself, just kind of going through a few of them. And every day I try to watch 1 or 2 just to knock out a couple, especially if they're short. We get some submissions that are like 2 minutes long. Well, I can knock out 10 of those in an hour, so, but, if it's a feature, it's probably going to take a little bit more time for me. But, so I'm just watching kind of the short ones and just, trying to figure out which ones are a definite no, which ones are a maybe, and just kind of putting them in boxes. And then once we get to September, but by that point, realistically, we could probably be already over 400 or 500 submissions by that point. So that's when I'll need to hire them, and then I'll just break it up into categories like, hey, you guys take this country, or you guys take the East Coast, or you guys take this, because you can kind of sort on Film Freeway by where the submission came from.
Very cool. So what can people look forward to in April? How long is the festival, and how many films are going to be involved?
Yeah, so we're still planning. Obviously, we're still a little bit of ways away, but typically it's a mixer on whatever weekend it is. Is usually a mixer, and I think we know what weekend it's going to be, but we still have to confirm it with the IMAX. And that's the other thing about the IMAX. It's I always have it in April, but the dates always change of the weekend because it just depends on what movies they have that are playing that are big that year, because that can affect the date that we want to have it there. Because the IMAX plays real movies, they play Hollywood films and the big films.
Don't release when the next Odyssey comes out. Yeah,
exactly. Well, like not this past festival in April, but the year before, they had a sleeper hit that nobody knew about that was taking place right during the middle of our festival, which was Sinners. Nobody knew that was going to be as big of a hit as they thought it was going to be, and so the studio, the director of IMAX, Doug, he scheduled a screening one of the nights right after our festival was concluding at like 8. We didn't even know about it. So I'm doing I do the awards every night, and I was doing the awards, and his projectionist comes down and talks to me. He's like, "Hey, just so you know, there's another film that's playing right after this is over, and there's about 300 people in the lobby waiting.
Just waiting.
Yeah, and so we had to quickly wrap it up, and it was just chaos
funny.
because you had 300 people in the theater trying to get out. You had another 300 people trying to get in, and then usually we take pictures and stuff with people after they get the awards, and there was none of that was going to happen that night. I'm like, look, I'm sorry guys, you guys are going to have to come back tomorrow if you want to get pictures and stuff like that in front of our our banners and all that good stuff, and with your friends and family, because there's just no room to do that. It's like pandemonium in here. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So there's something I just found out that you're doing that I just saw your Facebook post on, the 30-day film challenge. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so there have been a lot of challenges in the area. There's been like 10 by 10 challenges. There's been a 48-hour challenge, and I've always been talking about doing a film challenge. And people have asked me about doing a film challenge, just something to get more people involved in the filmmaking process. Because I'm not a director, right? And so, but I love to be able to be involved in the filmmaking process, and so. I thought about what I wanted to do as far as a film challenge, and I looked at what was already present because, like I said, I like to do things a little bit different that not everybody else is doing. And so I looked at the 48 hour and I said, well, it's a challenge for sure. It's 2 days, but from what I've seen, and I'm not saying this is across the board, it's very difficult to make a good film in 2 days, right? You got to film one
Yes.
day, you're post editing in the second day, and then you're sending it off. 10-day challenge, you got a little bit more time, but still, it's very, 10 days is, it's not a lot of time to film, shoot, excuse me, get your cast and crew together, and then go edit it and get it submitted. So I chose a 30-day challenge because I felt like that would give directors enough time to actually shoot the film in a timely manner, make sure they have all their cast and crew, all their positions, and then they have a lot of time for post as well, because post can take sometimes twice as long as actually shooting the thing. And
Yes.
so that gives
Yes.
them the time to find all these, because people are reaching out to me. I'm looking for an editor. I'm looking for a colorist. I'm looking for, all these different positions that are involved in the post film process. And so, it's good that they have that time to do that.
I
And so we
love
chose a
that.
30-day challenge because of that. I didn't initially think it was. People are calling it the 30 by 30 because it's 30 filmmakers making 30 films. I just
Okay.
did the 30-day challenge. I had no intentions of having 30 filmmakers initially. Um, it's just that was the response that we got from it because that many people were
Wow.
interested in doing
That's
it.
so
And so
cool.
once we got to like 20, I said, well, we got to cut this thing off at some point because there's no way I'm going to play 100 films, right? And so we just said, well, let's
Yeah.
just cut off. We already got 20 now that we've accepted. Let's just cut off at 30. And so we cut it off at 30, and now we have 30 filmmakers that are making a film. And so what happens? We had the
That's
cast and
so
crew
cool.
call back last month on July the 18th. So they have 30 days from the 19th, which was the next day, to shoot the film, and then it has to be done, completed, and uploaded by August the 19th. And then on August 29th, we're going to have the actual screening of the 30 completed films.
That is so cool. So the filmmakers are in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, they're filming right now. I think one of them, only one has completed it so far. The rest of them, some of them have finished shooting, but they're in post. And so what we did is to make it a challenge because you got to have some challenge element to it. Is we separated it into three different buckets, and each director was able to pull out a card from each bucket that tells them what type of film they're going to have to make. And so
Oh,
some of them already
fun.
have scripts, and I said, hey, you can use the script you already have, but you're going to have to somehow fit these elements into it. And we tried not to do anything that was going to be too like silly. And so it was like the first bucket was going to be your time, and so we had three different time blocks. So you could do a 5 to 7
Mm.
minute film, an 8 to 11 minute film, or a 12 to 15 minute film. Naturally, most people prefer the 8 to 11 or the 12 to 15. They wanted to do longer
Yeah.
films, right? And then the second bucket was your theme, whether it be horror, drama, comedy, whatever case may be. And then the third bucket was a required element. So it was like maybe the film must involve a driving scene, maybe it must involve a death of some sort, something of this nature. And we said,
Very
hey, you can
cool.
use your own script, you just need to incorporate these elements into the script. And then to be fair, we said that each director could do one swap with another director. So we did that at the
Oh,
cast and crew
cool.
call. Yeah, and so the directors could say, "Hey, I really wanted you to do a comedy, and you got horror, and I got horror. Are you interested in doing a horror film? You got comedy." And so they would say, "Yeah, I'd rather do a
That's
horror
cool.
film." And so they swapped it that way, so people were able to do the films for the most part that they
That
wanted to do. So.
that gets a lot of engagement going too, right? At your mixer.
Right, and
That's
it gets
really
people
cool.
talking, people in
Yeah.
the community. You get to talk to directors that you didn't know who were before, and then, like I said, we had that cast and crew call on the on the 18th, and it was bigger than we expected it to be. We didn't know that we were going to sell out. We had 400 people that signed up for it. I don't know if all
That's
400 showed
amazing.
up because of space. There's only so much parking there. But I think
Yeah.
about 300 cycled through for the whole day, or the 2 hours we were there at the. We did it at a brewery, and it was just wall to wall people. You had to like squeeze by people to get by. But it was great because there was a lot of engagement. A lot of people were talking. There were a lot of actors. It was primarily actors, not as many film crew that showed up, but a lot of actors from the community showed up. And there was a lot of new faces that I had never seen before. You know, having done a festival for a number of years and had people on my show and just being involved in the community, there were a lot of brand new faces, which I think is a great thing. It's getting
Yeah,
more
how
people
fun.
involved in filmmaking. So.
How fun. So for the audience, how can we get involved? How can we get tickets for this thing?
Yeah, so we are selling tickets right now on Eventbrite. I have a link
Okay.
and like a QR code and stuff like that. I've been doing kind of a soft push on it right now because the directors are
Okay.
still in the filmmaking process, so I hadn't really like did a hard push because they're gonna want to know, well, before I buy tickets, who are the directors, what are the films they're making, who's involved in these films, and so as the directors are starting to upload the films, I'll start doing more of a harder push. But we are selling tickets, but primarily it's mostly just the directors and the cast and crew that have been
Yeah.
buying the tickets that are involved in the film. But I think by next weekend we should have a full push and launch in terms of like, hey, these are the tickets, these are the different prices. They're broken up to categories, so we have three. We're gonna have three blocks with our 5 to 7 minute films, 8 to 11, 12 to 15, are separated by their blocks, or you can buy like an all day pass. Tickets are going to be relatively cheap, like $20, or you can buy an all day pass for like $30 if you want to see all 30
Very
films.
cool.
And then at the end of the
So,
night, we're going. Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so where would be the best place for people to connect with you? Is that Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram is usually my tried and true. People can
Okay.
email me at contact@sacktownmoviebuff.com and I'll get back to them pretty quickly that way. But I'm on
Okay.
Instagram, most of the day. I'm checking my
And
Instagram, my messages, and stuff like that. So.
it's Sacktown Movie Buff
Yes,
on
Sacktown
Instagram as
Movie
well.
Buffs on at Sacktown Movie Buffs is the easiest way to reach me there. And like I said, if you message me, I usually get back to you that same day, or you tag me in a post. I usually share that post the same day if I saw it before I went to bed or something. But yeah, I usually check it,
Very cool.
probably hourly just to see what's coming. So yeah, that's it right there.
Awesome. Right on. And so, go ahead and finish your thought. I think I interrupted you a little bit. Finish your thought about the film challenge there that you're.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just so what we offered for the directors for the first year out the gate. So we're gonna do it at Future Explored, which is a great community spot. I decided not to do it at the IMAX or a big theater because
Mm,
for two reasons. One, I didn't know what the participation was going to be because, like, before this is my first time doing one of these. Obviously, I have a big network of people that I'm connected with, but there's no guarantee that 30 directors were going to want to do this thing, or we're going to have this much in the community because there's a lot of other challenges that are happening in the community as well. So I didn't know like if that many people wanted to be interested and involved. So we decided let's go a little bit smaller. Let's do it at Futures Explored, and we offer the caveat of this. So they're separated by the three blocks with the timelines. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give $250 to the winner of each of those blocks. So whether it's 5 to 7, 8 to 11, or 12 to
oh,
15, you're
cool.
going to get a $250. So you at least get a little bit of money back for it. And then we're going to vote which film we felt was the best of all the films. And then I have like this really really nice championship belt that I got online. It was like $300 or something like that. It's nice. I mean, it's like 7 pounds or something like that. It's like a real
Oh, I love
championship
that.
belt with it says like the
Yeah,
Sacktown Film Challenge winner on it. Really, really cool thing. And I did like a little fun like wrestling WWE type thing to promote it. And so the winner
that
is
is
going to
so
get that,
cool.
and they'll have that for bragging rights. And then we're going to take the top 5 films from there. Will automatically play at the Sacktown Film Festival in April. So
Oh,
it's
that's
another
so
way to
cool.
get it automatic into the festival because we're getting 5, 6, 700 submissions now. It's getting way way more difficult for me to accept as many films. Because we're only doing it for 2 days, and a lot of them are shorts. So we can squeeze and maximize as many films as we get, but I can only
Yeah,
play about 45 to 50 films total. So if we
yeah,
get 700 submissions, that's less than 10% of the films we're going to play. And so this
yeah.
is an easy way to like kind of jumpstart your way to get into the festival is by doing this challenge, scoring the top 5, and then you're automatically in.
Love that. Love that. That's so exciting. We definitely got to come back and talk about that when it gets closer to the film festival as well.
Yeah, for
That'd be
sure.
really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
I
for
want to
sure.
get into a little bit of film. You mentioned uh, Pulp Fiction earlier. So
Right.
you're a film critic. You've done Sacktown Movie Buffs TV show, the 30-day film channel, the film festival. So many things you got going. But at the heart of all of this is movies, I think. And to
Yeah,
take me
yeah. You can
back,
see behind
yeah,
me. These are
yeah,
my Blu-rays. So I've got
yeah. There you
probably over
go. Your
I
Blu-ray
probably have
collection.
over 1,000 films or something like that. So I'm a big advocate of media and having physical media. So I buy Blu-rays for films that I love. But yeah, the
I
heart of
love
it is
that.
films. I just like watching films in general. Before I'm anything film critic or whatever, I always say I'm a film nerd first. I just love film.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that. What is so formative about, say, Pulp Fiction, or why do you keep returning to that? And what is it that really that movie gets you fired up about?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I really like, action films. That's kind of like the genre that I kind of gravitate towards. So if a film has a little bit of action in it, I love it. But I also love a film that has really, really good dialogue. So Quentin Tarantino was actually my favorite director of all the directors, and that's because of the dialogue that he uses in his film. I like the conversations that his characters have in the films, and just the catchphrases, the banter that his characters have, and it's comical, it's funny, it's poignant, it's relatable. And I know some of the stories they say, oh, well, that was borrowed from this or that was borrowed, but everybody borrows from something, right? But it's still, really, really cool stories that he has in those films. And Pulp Fiction is one of those films that, like, you really can't describe it. Is it a drama? Is it a comedy? Is it an action film? It's like one of those films that kind of just like falls into multiple different categories, and then just with the filming style of how he jumps around and cuts in between scenes and things of this nature, and then just the ambiguity of the briefcase, like what's in it, nobody really knows, that kind of stuff that keeps you talking. It's just the kind of film that people just talk about after they've seen it. Because there's just so much to little nuggets and the comments and all the different things, the elements to the film, and then the stars that are in the film as well. And then the fact that a lot of when he made that film, people forget that Samuel Jackson wasn't a star then. John Travolta's career was on the backslide then. Bruce Willis's career was kind of on a backslide then, and so he basically helped jumpstart a lot of their careers with that film as well. And so a lot of people don't remember that, but remember those films that that Tom Travolta was making right before that. They weren't like hits, and
Yeah,
Bruce Willis had already started to fall off, after his Die Hard glory days. He wasn't really making stuff, and then Samuel Jackson wasn't really a household name at that point he was like a lot of background characters. He'd been in a lot of films, but a lot of people didn't know who he was by name. And so those
yeah,
films kind of made those guys stars. And he does that a lot in his filmmaking. He takes a character or somebody that was famous once before, Jackie Brown, Pam Grier. She hadn't really been in anything since really Foxy Brown, Sheba Baby kind of thing, right back in the 70s. So that kind of helped jumpstart her career a little bit, got her name back out there. Robert Forster was another one, an older actor that was in some films and, back in the day. And then he was also in Jackie Brown and kind of helped start his film. Then I started seeing him in stuff like Breaking Bad and things of this nature. So I love that about him, is that he picks actors that he likes, and he works with those people, and he helps like bring those actors to life. And it's just a really, really cool film just overall, and one that I can continue watching over and over again because there's so many nuances and nuggets you can pick up from it.
that is so cool. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about Tarantino is that you can tell he's just a kid at heart. Like
Right.
he was watching those actors when he was a kid, and so
Right.
he wanted them in his
Yeah.
films, and I just love
Yeah,
that about him.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
when he did like the Grindhouse film, kind of taking you back. So he does a
yeah.
lot of the stuff. I liked. We saw the crap. I can't think of the name of the film off the top of my head. The Hateful Eight. We saw the
Oh
Hateful
yes,
Eight.
yeah.
Like on, I think it was either Christmas Day, I believe. We saw the opening of it. Yeah, Christmas Day downtown at the tower, and he had like a playbill with it, which I hadn't gotten at a movie before. Which was like really
Yeah.
really cool. I still have it. had like a really cool intermission thing that was going on where they played like commercials and stuff like that in between it, and like it was just like really cool experience, and I had never experienced that before. You go to a film, you get like a nice really cool playbill, and so a lot of stuff he does is he just takes you back to his childhood and what he used to do with the playbills and the grindhouse house films and the actors of his day that, you know, when he was a child that he really enjoyed watching, that, you know, hadn't done anything in years, and brings them back. And so I think it's a really cool thing. You know, as of late, he says some really controversial stuff and some weird things as of late, but, you know, I
Yeah.
still go back to him back in the day in his heyday. So,
Yeah, so true. I remember watching Grindhouse on opening night, and my favorite part of it was the trailers, the fake
yeah.
trailers.
Yeah, and they actually ended up
They
making
were
a
so
movie out of one
good.
of them. They made that Machete movie came out of that, which was one of the
Machete,
fake. Yeah,
yes,
it was one of the
yes,
was one of the fake
with
ones as well.
Trujillo. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, Danny Trujillo. Yeah,
yeah.
so good, so good. Well, thank you so much, Kier. This has been a pleasure. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we jump off?
No, man, just you know, I like I said, just I always urge everybody to just keep watching film. You know, media is kind of film is kind of you know, people say that it's a dying art, or you know the arts aren't as what they used to be in Hollywood. But you know, you look at right now, you look at the Odyssey, and you look at the new Spider-Man movie. They're both like over $1 billion, I think, at this point already.
I know.
And it's just like people
So
will come
exciting.
out. Yeah, people will come out for the film, and then you also look at films like Obsession or Backrooms, right? That were made on
Yes.
very small, minuscule budgets that became giant
Yep.
hits. So you know, or even The Sinners, which was kind of a sleeper hit. People will come out for film. You just have to give people something that they want to see, and I think that's a problem with Hollywood, is they're not giving people the films that they want to see. Start making the projects that we want to see, and we'll come out and we'll show up and we'll show support. But I'm a big fan of an advocate of people going to the theaters and watching film versus waiting for it on
Yes.
streaming. You got to have that experience, the popcorn, the audience, even with people chattering and talking. It's all part of that experience, right?
Yep.
You got to
I think
have that.
the biggest thing for me, I think, is sound
And
too.
the
It's like
sound, yeah. I mean,
we have big screens, we can buy
right,
big
right. But
screens,
yeah, my
but
sound bar
the
can't
sound
do what an IMAX theater can do. I mean, it just can't. It
exactly.
just can't compete, you know. So it's great, and I don't care how big of a. Well, I have a 150-inch screen at home. I'm like, that's great. And you have a sound bar and you have a surround system, it's still not going
Yeah.
to sound like an IMAX. I'm
No.
sorry, it's just not.
No.
You're not going to have that picture, and it's not going to sound. I mean, that IMAX screen, like I stand up there, and on the back of me when I do my awards at the end of the night at the festival. I mean, I'm like a blip on that thing. You know what I
That's
mean? It
right.
is that massive. I'm like, I can
Yeah.
stand behind a 150-inch TV and still like.
It's like
So,
10 stories, right? I think it's like 10
yeah, I
stories
mean, it
tall.
is just. I mean, it is just like you're like you get a crick in your neck just looking all the way up at it. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's just kind of my
Yeah.
final words. Is just continue watching films in theaters. So,
Oh, thank you so much. That reminds me, actually, I had a little thing for you to respond to. Speaking of the Odyssey, you brought the Odyssey back up, so I remember this. I'll show you this quote, and you can tell me what your response is to it. I
sure.
just saw this on. Do you see this? Christopher Nolan says, problem with modern amateur criticism for films is people recognizing a narrative trope and seeing that as negative. To be able to identify the mechanism doesn't invalidate the mechanism. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know, it goes back to it's really social media. So I think social media has changed the narrative and the landscape of which films we watch, and the things about it, because there's just so much negativity in social media in general, and so like if the Odyssey had came out in the '90s, right? There wouldn't be any controversy about it. Nobody would be questioning about it. They would just say, "Oh, this really cool, awesome, epic film that's coming out." Well, now everything's political. Everything's got its own little thing. It's about, you know, you can't be woke. You know, if you go woke, go
Mm,
broke. You know, that kind of nonsense that comes out. And so people criticize the film and review bomb films before they even come out to theaters based on, you know, oh, he changed. This actor was supposed to be white and now they're black, or he did this, or he's got a trans person that's doing this character. And like, my thought is, it's kind of a made up story, right? You know, some of the events were real, but a lot of the characters and you know, and research, if you do your research, a lot of those characters that are and there weren't real characters. And we're also talking about ancient Greece. So these were Greek people. People have no problem if somebody that's Caucasian's in the film, but these are not. These are not individuals that are. They're not. It's not even true. You know what I mean? Like Matt Damon was character or a person would not have been in those times because they were Greek
Yes.
individuals, right? So you're
Yes.
already it's already a disbelief on it, and so people are very negative and they're very critical about the film without even seeing it because on social media it's just an easy thing to do. You pick one
Yeah.
character and say, oh well, it's got Lupita in it, and she's a black. Troy. Helen of Troy was this blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I'm like, no, she wasn't. She was, it was
Yeah.
ancient Greece. No, she wasn't.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's the face that launched 1,000 ships into battle. And I'm just like, for the record, you guys do realize Lupita was actually voted most beautiful woman in the world like 4 years ago. So I'm
Yes.
just saying. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Whether you might, yeah, I know they show that image of her looking like mean and kind of like an ugly face. You know what I mean? But it's like that's a narrative you're going with. Why aren't you showing what she looks like other parts in the film, right? That kind of stuff.
Correct.
And so it is frustrating for me as a critic and as somebody that loves and admires movies that there's just so much negativity around movies now and the criticism about movies. It's more magnified now because anybody can get online. Everybody's an expert now. Everybody can get online and give their
Yeah.
opinion, and everybody's an expert on film. Everybody's an expert on how things should be. And that's just a problem that I have with film and life today in general, that everybody's an expert on everything. You give an opinion or you say something, there's always somebody that's like, oh, well, you can't do that because blah, or you can't say that, or you can't do this. And it's just like, yeah, you can. He's a director. He can do whatever the heck he wants to do. You know what I mean? It's his film. It's his vision. If you don't like it, you don't have to go. But don't go online and review bomb it and shame the film before you even seen it. If you don't want to see it, just don't see
Exactly.
it. I don't go
Exactly.
online for films I don't want to see. I don't go, I see the new blah, blah, blah films coming out. It didn't look good to me. I'm not going to go see it. Nobody cares. Just don't go see it. Like, you don't have to go online and tell the world that you're not going to go see it because of XYZ. Just don't see it. If there's something you don't want to see,
Exactly.
don't see it. So there's tons of
I,
films I
I
don't want
I
to see.
love that. I love that you said that because one of the things that I noticed about some of the online discourse was that it was very loud, but it's a minority group, right? Like
Right.
they have their
Yeah,
little
but you
channels
get
on
enough of those
the
people,
Yeah.
and it's like it's like, what do they say? It's the 10% of the people out of the 100% are the loudest in the room, right? So they're the ones that make the most noise, and so when people hear that, because the other 90% aren't saying anything, they don't have a problem
Yeah.
with it. It's that 10% that the loudest, the most vocal, and people think, oh well, that must be the standard because there's 10%, and it's like, no, they're just the most vocal. They're the most
Yeah.
out there. They're the ones that are saying this stuff. Whereas like me, I liked the movie, I did my review, and I moved on, right? I'm on
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
next thing, right? These people are
That's
so
right. Yeah.
fixated on it, and they're still fixated on it. Now it's about the box office, oh, it was gonna bomb. And then when they saw how much it made opening weekend, well, it's got to make, at first they said it, because it cost 250 million. They first said, well, it's got to make, 500 million in order to make its money back. And then it makes 500 million. Well, you include another 25 million for marketing. So really, it's 650 to 700 to make its money back. Now it's at 900. Oh well, it's I don't know. It might still just have broken even at 900. Now it's going to make projected 1.5 billion dollars, and it's just like, well, it's not going to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man opened at $1 billion. I'm like, yeah, it's an R-rated film,
Right.
dude. So like, you keep pushing
Right.
the goalposts to make this movie be a flop or not a success, and it's frustrating. They did the same thing last year with Sinners and with One Battle After Another. There was this whole like backlash for Sinners. Oh, I saw that movie already when I saw Dusk Till Dawn. And I'm like, if you think
Oh,
that
right.
movie is exactly like Dusk Till Dawn, then you clearly have missed something. There's definitely
Yeah.
something wrong with you. Other than the premise of they're both at a nightclub, a club of some sort. I mean, it's a completely different movie. It's like
Oh yeah.
they're not the same at all. Like one's dealing with deep racial South in the 1930s. Like, that has nothing to do with a couple of bandits to take a family hostage and go to a nightclub in Mexico because they're evading the police. Those are completely different
Yeah.
stories all the way together. You're taking one little thing and saying, oh, this is just like that. One battle after another. Oh, it's too woke. It didn't make its money back at the box office. And I'm like, well, it's made its money back because it made money on streaming. It got re-released after it won Best Picture. And so this narrative,
That's
this
right.
negativity in film, it really does frustrate me and it irritates me because it's like there's always these negative hate groups that are just coming out. There's a lot of movies I don't care for. I don't see them.
Yeah.
I didn't, the Supergirl movie, I'll admit, it didn't look good to me. I didn't go. I didn't go online and post about it. I didn't rag the
Right.
movie. I didn't go,
Yeah. You're
this
not like
movie
flop watching
bombed.
it.
I'm glad it bombed. I'm happy that it bombed. Blah,
Correct.
blah. I'm not happy that the movie bombed. It proved my point of why I didn't want to see it. So a lot of the things that I thought looking at the trailer came, were what was said about the film, but I didn't personally go online and shame the film or bomb the film or say,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad it didn't make any money. That's just a hater mentality. Like, why be that way? If you don't want
Yeah.
to go see something, just go see it. I don't see everything. There's, like I said, I probably see 150 new movies that come out every year, which is a lot, right? But,
That is.
so 12 movies, new movies a month, you know what I mean? But there's a lot I don't go see. There's 350 something movies that come out a year. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I don't see, so I'm only seeing a fraction of those. So I pick and choose which movies I want to see outside of the movies that I'm required to watch for the critic organizations I write for. But I see what I want to see, but I don't rag on the ones I don't want to see. I mean, if someone asks me a
Yeah.
question, I'll tell you a movie sucked if I saw it. But if I haven't seen it, I don't give you an opinion on it. I was like, it just didn't look interesting to me, so I didn't go. And I leave
I
it at
think the
that.
problem I yeah the problem I have with it too is like for instance Sinners is a good example. If they're sitting there like flop watching it or doing all this negative press before the movie even comes out, then you possibly might keep people from watching that. I mean, I guess what I'm really trying to say is that it has one of the most transformative scenes I've ever seen in film. Like
Right.
that scene in the middle of the film when all the different music from all the different
Yeah, I love that
worlds comes
scene. Yeah, I
together.
mean, that
That's
was
one of
something
the
that
most
I'd never.
incredible
It was
scenes
something
I've ever seen in
I'd
a
never
movie.
seen that
Yeah,
before. That was something that was
absolutely
unique,
beautiful.
and I love that. And people take these little small things and they find these reasons to hate on something. And a lot of them are so small and
Yeah.
minuscule, the reason
Yes.
they
In
hated
the
on,
grand scheme of things.
yeah, Sinners. I'm like, well, what really was the problem? Is the problem is because it was predominantly an African American film? Is that what the problem is? Because they have a
Yeah.
predominantly African American cast? I don't
If that
know.
is it, then you're
No.
revealing yourself. You're
Right,
revealing yourself. Yeah.
one battle after another, same thing. Is it because it is attacking the government that a lot of people have an issue with? Okay, yeah, the things they do in that film, I don't advocate anybody doing. Of course not. I don't advocate
Yeah.
people going out being terrorists, but it's a freaking movie. Calm down. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yes.
no
Yeah.
reason to say it's woke or hate on the film because it doesn't fit your ideals and beliefs. Then don't go see it. Well,
Yep.
the Odyssey. They're complaining about two characters. They're complaining about Lupita being black, and they're complaining about Elliot Page being a trans person. They're in the movie for a total of maybe 4 minutes out of a
And
three
even
hour
if they
long
weren't,
movie.
what is the problem?
Yeah,
Even
I
if they
mean, what
weren't.
is the
Exactly.
problem? Like, even if they were
Yeah.
the main stars, like, if you don't like it, don't go see it. But the point that I'm making is they weren't even the focal point of the film. It
Yeah.
wasn't even about them. It was more about his journey and where he was going. So it
That's
didn't
right.
matter regardless of how much screen time they had. But to complain about it, especially when they're only like 3 minutes of the film, and that's what you're clinging to. Like, to me, that tells me a lot about your character. As a
Yeah.
person,
And
like,
I think
and
what
whatever
Nolan
your
was
beliefs
like,
are about trans people or whatever case may be, that's your opinion. I'm not
yeah.
arguing and I'm not getting into that debate. I'm just saying the fact that he had a character in the film, that was his vision. That's what he
Yes.
wanted to do, and it didn't distract from the film. It didn't do anything negatively to the film. Elliot Page an actor, right?
Yes.
So that has done some good films, been in some great TV shows in the past, and so for you to hate on that is a problem with you. Like, what is the problem?
That's right.
Yes, this person transitioned. but they're still an actor. They're still the same
That's
person
right.
that they were beforehand. They still have the same level of skills that they had beforehand. So why are we arguing about this?
I love
They
it.
didn't pick a
Yeah.
trans person off the street to do the film that has no acting credentials or credit for this scene. That
Correct.
really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They picked somebody that is actually a thespian, someone that actually can act and is good at their job. And that's what acting
Exactly.
is. It's playing something that you're not. That's the other problem I have is when
Yeah.
people get into these, these things about what they can and can't do, and you can't have this person playing this person, and on the flip side of that, like they don't have a problem if a gay person plays a straight person in a film, right? There's not a problem with
Right.
that. But a lot of people have a problem if a straight person plays a gay person in the film. I'm like, well, isn't that the whole point of acting? Like you want people to play roles that you know what I mean. Like that's the whole point of acting. You play a role that's different than yourself. That's what acting is in general. No, we want you to
Exactly.
play the character you actually look like and are in every single film. We want you to be
Yeah.
yourself in every. I'm like, well,
That's
if you want that,
absurd.
then go watch The Rock. He plays himself in almost every single film that he does. He's the big, muscular, hulking dude in every single film, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I love a lot of The Rock's films, but he plays the same character. If that's what you're looking for, then just watch those films. So,
Yeah. I love that too. I think Nolan is speaking to the not taking the film at its own merit as well. Like
right.
I think that's a big part of criticism is taking the film at its merit, the piece of art, the at its
Yeah.
own merit, not
Right.
based on every other thing that is
Right. And
influencing
art
it.
is
Yeah.
subjective, right? So art is subjective. So
Yes.
some people are going to like that, and most people did. The reviews have been overwhelmingly positive from critics as well as from audiences, both alike. But not everybody's going to love everything because everything is subjective. There are certain films that don't move me. There's a lot of big films
Yeah.
that were super popular that everybody loved and gravitated towards, and I wasn't a big fan of it. And I own it. I didn't love the Titanic, but I saw the movie. I can give you reasons why I didn't love it as much as the next person did. And I know there was a whole backlash after it made a bunch of money and things, but I wasn't part of that backlash. I didn't get into that. I just said I thought it was okay. I didn't love the story. There were some issues I had with it, and now that's what people harp on in some of those issues, which I'm like, why are we talking about this now? It's said, it's done, it's over with. Let's just move forward. But but I don't go online. I don't rag on it. I don't talk smack about
Yeah.
movies. I don't do that. That's just not who I am. I don't even do a lot of critics will do their bottom five or their bottom 10. I don't even do that. I don't do a bottom 10 because I don't believe in being negative. I stopped.
Yeah.
At one point I think I started to do something like that and I just changed my mind. I said, what's the point? Here's all the films that I hated. Okay, now at this point you're just trying to get people to argue with you, because
Right.
there's gonna be people that
That's
love
the
that film,
discourse. Yeah.
right? And now you're just gonna get people that are gonna want to argue with you and say, oh well, you didn't like this film. I thought it was amazing, and why didn't you? You know what I mean? And now you have to get into this back and forth banner or just come across with the negativity. And I'd rather be positive. I'd rather talk about the films that I like,
Yeah.
the films that I love, versus harping on the films that I didn't like or didn't love. And I will give time for the films I didn't like. I'll do a review and say, hey, I watched this film. I didn't like it. Here's the reason I didn't like it. And then I moved on. I go I go on with my life. I'm going to the next film. I don't have time to keep focusing on this one film that I didn't like, even if everybody else loved it. That
Yeah.
happens to me a lot of times. There's tons of films where everybody loved it, and I wasn't as big of a fan of it. But I just, I said, hey, it wasn't for me. I had issues with it. The Michael movie. Audiences loved it, They loved it. It's like a 98% with audiences. Critics
Yes.
gave it a 30. I follow with the critics. I see the problems with the film. And I'm like, but I also see the other side of it as well. I'm like, I can see why people loved it so much because of the music, and I love the music. I love his music. I love the dancing. I thought that Jafar did a great job playing that role. But the story itself, once you pull back and you look at the story itself, I'm like, this is a music video. This is like it's like an homage to Michael Jackson. We don't learn anything
Yeah.
about him as much as I would have liked to, but it's just more about let's vibe to the good music. And I'm like, that's fine. If you're gonna do that, just make a documentary. And,
No
and that
kidding.
was my talk. That was my takeaway from it. And I'm like, so I get it from that standpoint that you love the music, and so do I. I love it. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. But the movie itself, it didn't dive deep enough for me. And maybe in the second part, they'll get a little bit more into the specifics, but probably not a lot because his family is controlling the narrative of what is to be said in the film. And I'm like, well, if all you're going to talk about is the good, you're not going to go see the bad stuff and even the bad. Well, that's not real filmmaking. That's just giving people
Right.
what they want to
Yeah.
hear. And so that was my gripe with it, but I didn't spend weeks and months and talking about why I didn't love it. And I didn't hate the film. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like it wouldn't be in my bottom 10 or nothing like that. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. I'm a tough critic to begin with. I barely ever give any 5-star films. I haven't given one 5-star film all year. I gave one 5-star
Oh
film
wow.
last
Yeah.
year. And so that's the other thing that people don't realize when people say, "Oh, you gave that 2.5. What the hell's wrong with you? You don't know what you're talking about. You're blah." I'm like, I'm a tough critic to begin with. I don't give a lot of 5-star films. Like I said, I've given one in the last 2 years so far. Now, a film may come out later this year that I give a 5-star films, but on average, I only give maybe one or two 5-star films a year. That's just me. For me to say a film is perfect, it has got to just almost impress me in every single way. And there's very few films that do that. There's always films where I find fault with them. And I'm not saying that the films that even that I love and give 5 stars, you can't find fault with. I'm just saying for me, I find fault with films. A lot of times it's runtime. Odyssey, great film. If they shorten it by 30 minutes, maybe it's a 5-star film for me. You know what I mean? Like, that's just who I am. You know what I mean? Spider Man, I thought, it wasn't 5 stars or 4 stars. I don't know what grade I'm giving it yet, probably 3.5. But, if it was maybe there was so many parts where I thought it had ended and they kept going, and I was like, okay, I'm ready now. Like, and they keep going with another scene, and some of those scenes were cool, but it was just like, man, like, are we wrapping this film up or what? But if they had shortened it a smidge, it would get a much higher score, but like I said, I don't harp on the negative. I try to keep it positive as I can because I don't believe in just completely, utterly obliterating a film. It's just not my style. But there's also very few films that I give 1 star. It's very rare that I give a film 1 star. I don't know that I've given any films that I've seen this year 1 star or less, or
Wow.
no,
Yeah. Well.
no stars. You know what I mean? I could
Yeah.
probably count on maybe two hands how many films I've given no stars to. You know what I mean? Because every film has a value. Even if I didn't like it, I'd just say it wasn't for me. You know what I mean? Somebody else might like it. But I like this aspect of it, or that was a pretty good scene, or there's some redeeming value there. It would make it very hard for me to give something 0 stars. But that's just who I am. I'm not saying a film's perfect with the 5 stars very often, but I'm also not a person that gives 0 stars to films very often either. I'm usually in that, 2 to about 4 star range is usually about where I'm at with my film reviews. So most films that I see
Love
fall
that.
into that category somewhere, just because I don't believe in shaming films, but I don't believe in propping up films that have flaws. So
That really speaks to your integrity and the job, how seriously you take this job too. I really appreciate that. I
yeah,
just only having one, and that's being honest, right? That's being honest, and I think your followers will appreciate that too.
yeah, and
One
I hope
more
so. And
thing,
a lot of people don't
yeah,
know that about me. They don't know that I
yeah,
don't do that. A lot of people just see that I gave something a lower score than what they felt I should have given it. Like Michael, I gave it 2.5, which honestly to me is not a terrible score. If you look at the grand scheme of things, if you're looking like even Jason will tell you, he goes, well, your highest grade you give something is 3.5. That's what he'll tell you. It's not true, but it's very rare that I give something over 3.5. At the end of the year when I do my top 10 or top 25 or whatever I do, it's usually like, maybe one 5 star, maybe one or two 4.5s, couple fours, and then everything else is 3.5. Like that's just me. So if I give something
yeah,
2.5, I'm saying it's only 2 points lower than a 3.5. You know what I mean? Which is
yeah,
probably one of the higher grades that I actually give. That means I really liked it. If I give it 3.5, it's just hard for me to give something, 5 stars. I just don't give a lot of
yeah.
them.
That little extra. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to speak to this too was I think that we were talking about that online discourse and how they're so negative about films. And one of the things I think that small minority missed was just sheer star power. I think when a lot of people have been saying that the star is dead, but I don't think that's true. I think we're seeing like Tom Holland and Zendaya they both just came out with 2 movies that go over $1
Even
billion.
John Bernthal, he was in both of them as well. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
they're and
yeah,
so the star power is definitely not dead. Yes, there are some challenges in Hollywood. I will say that. You know, the money is not what it used to be. Films are not making on average the type of money that it used to make. You do have the outliers like the Odyssey and Spider Man and but even some of the ones that were like huge hits like the Mario Brother 2 movie, a lot of people didn't really love that movie, right? You know what I mean? Like there was very few people that I talked to that said it was great. They loved the first one, like I liked the first one, but I didn't talk to a whole lot of people that loved that second one, but it still made $1 billion. You know, so box office isn't the be all end all to me either. You know, I understand you have to make your money back in order to continue to keep making projects, but everybody's so focused on this box office thing and whether it's a hit and whether it's, you
yeah.
know what I mean? I mean, is it good or not? That's the question. You know what I mean? That's not really what filmmakers should be in the game for, is to just turn out hits.
That's
I
right.
understand you have to make hits in order to continue to keep making, you know, movies, but everything shouldn't be just solely focused on the box office. And the narrative has changed. You know, the way we watch movies has changed. I think COVID changed a lot of that. You know, when we all were at home watching streaming films, you know, that got really popular. It was a very weird transition for us to now go back into theaters and watching films. And a lot of people just said, I can wait. And now, because a lot of the films outside of the Odyssey or Spider Man, they'll play in theaters for 2, 3 weeks, maybe a month, and then they're streaming, right? So, you know, used to be back in the day, you know, when I was coming up, you had to wait 6 months before it was on Blu-ray, or you could, you know, watch it on HBO or something of this nature. So you didn't really have another opportunity to see that film for quite some time until it was in theaters. And so, but now it's not the case because I can wait a month. So, and I do it the same, you know, if there's a movie that I'm not dying to see, I'm like, yeah, I'm not dying to see that. I'll wait till it's streaming. But I think that's a narrative for everybody with almost every single film. You know, they just, oh, I'll just
So
wait to
true.
catch it streaming. And so that's what's also hurting the box office, is because people are waiting to watch it streaming. And I don't have all the answers to that, but I do think that there's something to be said about if that's all you're doing, it's just showing a movie for 3 weeks and then immediately having it stream. Well, yeah, there's some movies that are streaming right now. I can rent it for $9.99 and it's still playing in theaters.
Yeah, yeah,
So why would I go to the theater? You know what I mean? If I can
yeah.
watch it for $9.99 at home with the whole family and pay $9.99, you know, and then that's the other issue is the cost of going to a theater these days, which I
Yes, yes.
acknowledge.
Especially if you have a
And
family.
yeah, I'm in a special position because I get a lot of films for free. So I will acknowledge that. Usually, I can take myself and a guest, or myself and my family for free, and it's an advanced screening. So I do get a lot of those, but I pay for tickets. You know, I go to the theaters. I paid for the Spider-Man film. You know, I got the Odyssey free, but I paid for the Spider-Man film, and I went with, it was three of us that went, and yeah, you know, by the time we bought the tickets, even at the discounted, because I have the Cinemark Club or whatever,
Yeah,
you know, and then the popcorns and the sodas and all the other stuff. I mean, it was probably like a $60, $70 outing. You know, that is a lot of freaking money to go to the theaters. You know, to say you can spend close to $1 bill, you know, for a family of four to go watch a movie, that is a problem. I'll
yeah,
admit, and I
yeah.
can acknowledge that, you know, that is a problem. That's also partially what's keeping people away from going to the theaters, because it used to be, you know, you could do dinner and a movie for, you know, $30, $40, you know. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
now dinner and a movie is probably closer to 250. If you're taking a family, you're easily spending $200, you know, because you're going to spend $60, $70 at the theater, and then you can easily spend four people to eat at any regular restaurant is over $100 these days, right?
Yeah.
So unless you're all just drinking waters, you know, you're going to
It's an
spend some
expensive
money.
night.
And it's an expensive
Yeah.
night. So how often am I willing to do that if I have a family of four? You know, how often am I
Yeah.
willing to go out and spend $100, $150, $200 just to go out to dinner and a movie for the night? I'm probably
I
not
think
doing
that's
it
why
as
it goes
much.
back to the local community as well. Like these film festivals are a great way to engage with local content
Yeah,
at a
yeah,
much cheaper rate, and
yeah. I mean,
you're supporting
and
local filmmakers.
yeah, and that's what I love. You're
Yeah.
supporting local people, people you know in the community, and you know, and we don't gouge people. There's other festivals that charge a little more than we do, but you know, we try to keep our prices fair. You know, $20-25 is not that bad to go watch, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 films. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
$30 and you can come watch 30 films. That's not a bad gig. You know what I mean? That's not a
Yeah,
bad
that's
deal.
amazing. Yeah.
And we keep it fair and we keep it fun and we make a whole event out of it. We have a mixer the night before, which is always free. You got to buy your drinks or whatever. But one year I did the mixer at Futures Explored and I brought drinks. And I ordered pizza and it was free. We didn't charge anybody. We had a whole band. We had a band that came and a couple artists that were with it, and we made a
Oh,
whole
that is
performance
fun.
out of it. Yeah, and it was just a fun night. And it was completely free. I didn't do it this last April, but something I might do again. Or maybe for the fifth year I'll do something similar where we have it at a place and we provide the food or we provide some of the drinks to save people on costs. But people like that because it's like, hey, yeah, maybe I paid $25 to go to spend the day, right? Or I paid $30 to watch film for the day. But, I was able to go to the mixer for free. I was able to connect with actors and actresses and directors and other crew members that I can maybe coordinate with on my next film. Or in this case,
Yeah.
I got free pizza out of it and free sodas or beer or whatever the case may be. It kind of makes up for the $30 that I paid because I was able to come out one night for free and didn't have to pay anything. And then we give you swag bags at the theater and it's just the experience. And then we do awards. We do the biggest awards of any festival in the area. Our festival's kind of part festival, part award show. Last April we gave out over 100 awards. So we celebrate the arts, and I'm probably the only film festival organizer that gives awards for the little people behind the scenes. A lot of the festivals here locally, they'll give awards to the director or the actor. We give awards to scout location people. We give awards to gaffer and lighting people, editors, makeup artists. So we're also looking out for the people that don't get the shine behind the set. And now they have a trophy. They can say, hey, I was awarded this at the Sacramento Film Festival. Or the Sacktown Film Festival, I was awarded this award, and they can put that on their resume and hopefully go get more jobs because they were awarded at a festival and they got the award and the recognition. So like, hey, I'm an award-winning editor. You know what I mean? Like that has a certain stigma to it. I'm an award-winning makeup artist, and so that's why we do that because we want to empower those people to go out and do more in the community or even outside of the community. Maybe get you an opportunity to get into a Hollywood film. I don't know, but that's our goal is to help heighten these people so they can go out in the community and do more film.
Oh man, I love that. Giving love to the technicians behind the scenes. That's so great.
Yeah, man, they just
Yeah.
don't get the shine. Like I said, I go to a lot of these festivals and it's all about the actors and the directors, and I'm just like, which I don't have a problem with it because obviously that's who you see, that's what you know. But it's editing is not easy. It's a pain. I'm not an editor, but when I went to college at Sac State, I did some editing for that, and I used to edit my own show for the Sacktown Media Buff. I've since given that job over, but because I just don't have the time anymore. But
Yeah, it's very time
it's
consuming.
tedious. It's a very tedious, and that's why I don't do it anymore because it's so tedious, and I've got a lot of other things going on in my life. I'd have to just focus on just
Yeah.
editing. I can't be watching movies and doing all the other stuff that I do in the community, and also be sitting doing the tedious editing work. So yeah, so and you got to award those people. Makeup makes a big difference. Makeup and hair. They make a big difference on a film set. Costume design makes a big difference on a film set. So yeah, we have an opportunity to award somebody for costume design or makeup or editing. I'm gonna do that because I realize and recognize the value in it, and I've seen some really really cool tricks with editing before. Like, why aren't we celebrating these people? Why aren't we honoring these people that are doing
Yeah,
these
it's
really
so
cool
important.
things with editing? Yeah, because it's not easy work. Um, I saw a short film. The director, his name was Wes Smith, and he made a short horror film. But the editing was just so crisp and sharp. He's an editor. He's also a director, but he's also an editor, and he works as an editor. It was just so crisp and sharp, and whether you love the film or not, you had to appreciate the editing of it, and it was just like something that I was like, wow, this guy's really really good. If I was making a feature film, he's the guy I would hire as my editor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can look at these people in the community and I can say, if I was doing this would be my makeup artist. This would be my hairstylist. This is who I would want to collaborate with to find out about, like, what type of set design we're going to do. Or I know this person finds like some really cool shot locations. This scouting person, this is a person, I want to collaborate with. And so we want to award and honor and recognize those individuals.
That's amazing. Well, thanks so much, Kierre. This has been so much fun. Let's
Not a
do it
problem, man.
again. Do
Yeah.
it somewhere like before the film festival or something like that. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah, absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually by about February, March, I'll have a
Okay.
handle on exactly what's going on. I should know what the lineup looks like and can talk to you about the types of films and what we're doing differently and all these things. Right now, my mind is still just kind of going through all the different things I want to do. But by then, I'll
Yeah.
have
You
it
got the
all in
film
place, and I
challenge
can
too.
yeah, exactly. I got to get through the film challenge before I can focus on the festival. So,
That makes sense.
yeah, but once I get through that, then I'll have to be laser focused on the festival in between watching Hollywood films.
Yes,
So-
yes, exactly.
so,
All
yeah.
right. Well, thank you so
Well, thanks
much.
for having me,
Just,
Owen, man. It was great talking
yeah.
with you. And yeah, definitely we'll do it again sometime for sure.
Okay, cool. Just stay on when you're going to get a little notice here that will say that you just need to wait till the upload happens because it's going to upload your feed so we have that perfect quality.
For
So
sure.
it'll give you a little notice when I stop the recording and just hang on until it goes 100%. So,
Sounds good, man.
all
We'll
right.
do.
Awesome.